Does it feel good to be back on Facebook?
So far.
So far, so good. We were able to schedule the start of this. We've got our Christmas decorations up here for our show number 357 for Friday the 11th of December 2020. Julia, I trust you here in Studio B are well?
I am.
You don't sound that enthused. We got one of the coolest people in the sport.
That's true.
Here with us. Magnus Wheatley is standing patiently by in London, and we're going to get to him in just a second. Magnus, as I like to call him. Julia, any other hot tips? I'm going to tip your camera now. I got too much headspace on you, Julia. That's better.
There we go.
Doesn't that look better?
Yes, much better.
Okay. Well, let's get this turkey on the road. And you like to say at this point.
Yes, do not forget.
See, we got the Facebook graphic back up.
That's good too. Don't forget to like, follow, and share. Especially share, even now, because somebody can watch with us from the very beginning.
And by popular demand, we are back. Yes. We are back on Facebook because everybody wanted to be able to comment and like each other's comments or not like them and reply to them and so on.
Right.
We, of course, always listen to our esteemed FOSI, our friends of Sailing Illustrated, and we appreciate very much their support. Welcome to Studio B. Welcome to this show for really the start for us of the holiday season. I'm starting to feel a little more holiday-like, Julia.
I am too. And if I didn't, I had to put my Christmas tree on just to make me remind me.
You look nice. You're red, and I put my greenish jacket on. But also, I'm in the holiday spirit when people give us, and they are. Some people are sending checks direct because they don't want to put their credit card online. But if you want to join us as a patron via Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated, because we, like Magnus Wheatley, are viewer-supported media. And we count on you to help keep us on the air and keep my landlady happy.
Who's a very bad landlady.
So I can pay the rent here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. Welcome, everybody. Happy Hanukkah to those of you celebrating. Today is the first day of the 8-day Hanukkah season. Wishing you blessings and joy for this Hanukkah season. I want to kick right off with a Bravo Zulu to our guest today, to Magnus, because he's been gone. He's been off the scene for something now like 8 years. I was talking with him in the Tech Check, and he went off the air with his blog some 7 or 8 years ago. His wife told him he had to get a serious job. And now he's just in time for the America's Cup. He has reinvigorated the Rule69 blog, which he 69, of course, in the sport is allegations of gross misconduct. It's not just the misconduct rule, but I like gross misconduct, Magnus. And his blog, he is a terrific writer. He's got a serious job in London City in the financial business now in London. His wife said, you got to go get a serious job, which he's been doing. But it's great to have him back on the scene. Magnus, as I like to call him, Magnus Wheatley from GBR, he calls it hand grenade journalism. I think that's a bit of clickbait, Magnus. You're not really hand grenade journalism. You just like to tell it like it is. Welcome.
Welcome. Hi, Chairman.
Yeah, you and Jane Eagleson are about the only two people left in the world that call me Chairman, which has been a long time America's Cup nickname. Thank you for that. I trust you are well. What's going? It's a Friday night there at 21:05 in London. You're not too late for you.
Yeah, it's great to be here. It's nice to be back. It's a crazy world, A week ago, I fired the blog up, and a week later, I'm talking to you and the world. And you're in San Francisco, and you now the biggest video blog on the planet. And here we are.
Well, we are the biggest video blog in sailing because we're the only one that's live anyway, and that's been fun. And part of it, and most of it, is because of our FOSI, and we've got so many people already on. 77 people watching live. And a lot of people who are already on Facebook, and Facebook has started to make it easier for non-Facebookers to get on and see the show, and I sent the link around today. So thank you, Magnus, for joining us to celebrate our return to Facebook and your return of the Rule 69 blog, sir.
Tom, I'm attracting a whole new level of lawyers coming to your blog.
Well, I'm happy. I'm not happy to be sued, but we're not going to get sued. I mean, this is, especially here in the States, a little less so in the Commonwealth countries, but we have the freedom of speech that we, at least so far, Julie, we enjoy.
Yes.
I don't know what's going on after the post-election and with some of the talk, and well, let's don't get into all. We try not to be political on here, except Magnus, except sailing politics. We do talk about that.
Well, that's what the America's Cup is all about. It's what the Olympics is all about. I say in my blog that sailing is a simple sport mired in politics, and I think having sat on the sidelines for 8 years, nothing has changed. It's still a political game, and the higher up you go, the more politics there is, and that's what makes it fascinating.
It's part of what makes it fascinating. It also at times makes it just deadly dull.
Yeah.
But Magnus, there's so many people on here. We just always like to say a quick hi, especially now that we're back on Facebook. And thanks to all of you, not only for encouraging us to return, but for all your kind comments. Rick Hayes, Jonathan Frank, Rick Draverman. There's a lot of new names too, Julia. Eric Stibble, Gard Garland. I said Frank. Wingrove's back on Baton Rouge. Marina Sikuju, Nick Hooper, and some others. Marina's, of course, in Athens. Pindar's back on. Return of the Prodigals. I think he's talking about you, Julia.
Oh, well,
I know
both of us, I think.
You're a big fan of his.
I am.
And he of you. Ralph Roberts. Hello, Ralph. You know Ralph down in New Zealand. Henry Reese. They're all over. Cheers from Chicago. Rick Hayes, welcome back. Fabian Harrelson in Scandahuvia. No more YouTube, but what we will do, Fabian, and for all of you who are more comfortable at YouTube, we will put the show, and I'll do it religiously. I did it for a bit, and then it got took too much time and trouble, but I will put the show in post-production. I'll put it up to YouTube, so you can also watch it there after the show. R.B. Sundheim, the esteemed former Secretary General of World Sailing, is on as well from Southampton, just down from you. Magnus, Gordon Smith.
I'll be there tomorrow.
Say again?
I'll be there tomorrow.
We'll stop in, and there was a nice picture on Facebook of Arve with his dog wrapped around his face. He looked like Father Time. He looked like Santa Claus almost. Ted Ryman's in Cape Town, of course. There's a new name, Helen Pequero in the Dominican Republic, in the DR. Yarvaje is in Old Portsmouth. Helen is so on and so forth. Clark Chapin, of course. The more Winter Lake, Michigan. All these folks are back on. Rob McKesson, nice to see you all. Steve Suchia in Warmish. He says 63 degrees, Cincinnati, and his football team, Ohio State, will win tomorrow's game because Michigan has forfeited due to the COVID. So We always talk about college football here too, Magnus, a little bit.
Fair enough.
Gordon Smith's in drizzly Denmark. Ricky Pfaff. Hello, Commodore Pfaff
good.
in Rhode Island is watching. And on and on. I'm not going to name John Barnes, a new name. Brian Donamond is back from Denmark. Pedro Foiling, sailor down in Sydney or wherever he is on the east coast of Australia. I'm watching from, there, DDYY. Is that really a place? DDYY. Magnus, have you ever heard of a DDYY in Australia?
Where all the lawyers go on holiday.
Peter Stevenson's his real name. Blake Middleton is on up in the land of 10,000 Lakes, Minnesota. Steve Atkins, who's one of the first FOSI we knew. Did you say you'd had COVID?
Me? No.
Somebody I was talking to in the last couple of days said they had it, and they now realize they'd had it in February. But Steve Atkins, who's on, was the first FOSI we know who had it. He's been on the show a couple of times. He's has been struggling with the so-called long haul, the longer version of it that continues on for some people, maybe a lot of people. But we all hope to get vaccinated pretty quickly here. Margarita Marshall, thank you for your encouragement. She tells me John Marshall's going to come on and do some analysis for us. Magnus, that'll be good.
Get well soon to whoever's got it. God, that's awful.
Say again?
Get well soon to whoever has got it there. That's an awful thing to get.
Yeah, indeed. My youngest brother, the youngest of the 5 Ehman kids, has got it, but he seems to be weathering it okay. Thank you for those of you who sent notes. He seems to be okay. It does feel better here, Atkins is saying, and I'm glad to hear you say that. Alex Kent, when are you going to have a live studio audience somewhere at St. Francis Northwestern? Well, maybe post-COVID we could have a live studio. Sometimes we do have a live studio audience, meaning 1 or 2 people here. But during this COVID period, obviously not. Pindar, nithered in Norway, soaked in Sweden, flooded in Finland, but drizzled in Denmark. Pindar's been on the show. You know, of course, Andrew very well. And he's been one of our favorites. Stingray up in Seattle. All of you. Corey Sertle, hello, Madam President, who's the esteemed president of U.S. Sailing. Welcome to you. Louisa Smith, former World Sailing IYYSAF. Okay, Mindy Prager, there's a new name. Alan Long's an oldie. David Peterson, I think, is a new name. Yay, welcome. Okay, everybody, thank you. Almost 100 people on here live. Andrew McPherson, Clark John, David Cornwall's a new name. I think Jeff Waller's in Sydney.
Yeah.
World on Water TV. Don Lunabos, of course, Murray Lamont. Lots of folks. And Jody Shields. Thank God. You know Jody, Magnus?
No.
Okay,
you will.
You will. Jody did, if you watched Sail GP at all last summer, he was the commentator. He did the play-by-play.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Big guy, Australian, and he's funny as hell. And he did, I thought he did a terrific job.
Fantastic.
He's been on the show a couple of times, and he's a terrific sailor and a funny guy, and we'll get him back on. Stingray can take any political position he wants, Gordon Smith says.
Margarita Marshall says, why is Magnus so grumpy and negative?
He's not grumpy and negative. He just calls it the way he likes it, thinks about it. He means what he says and says what he means. Right, Magnus?
Yeah, I mean, it's... as I say, it's a blog that I write for myself, and it's blown up, and it's great to be back. But it's quite scary of the reach that your words have, and media these days is just so instant. In a week you can be up and running, and you can be on the front page of the New Zealand Herald. It's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
You want to read that piece from the front page of the Saturday New Zealand Herald before we get into the Cup?
Yeah, I mean, they found a source at Team Ineos who said, there's lots of inaccuracies in what I've said, and I stand by what I've said. I don't think there are a lot of inaccuracies, but we will see, and they've come out and said they're in their own development cycle, but I find it very, very hard to believe that a team that did 230 tacks, 283 jibes, and 197 bearaways in the last 5 days. The one day that they've actually got to go and do something, it breaks down. I find that, and I should say, and we were talking before we came on air, Tom, that no one wants the Brits to win more than I do. I guarantee you that. I desperately want Britain to win this. And the expectation level has been set so high And that is the team's doing. That is not the British media doing it, because the British media largely have pretty much ignored it, you know. And the bar is set very, very, very high. And you know, if Prada or the Americans, if they weren't particularly on the pace, I don't think it would be a big story. This is a classic America's Cup story of, you know, almost over-promising and under-delivering. And the Cup is littered with that story. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see what comes out. They are scheduled to race on Monday. And my God, they're really up against it to bring round a kind of quite skeptical sailing audience now.
Exactly. And same too for the other two challengers, who likewise seem to be a bit off of ETNZ's pace. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Couple other comments here. Michael Colcliffe is new. Hello, Michael. He's not exactly new, but nice to see you back. Jonathan Tweedle. Jed Shepard, I think, is a new name. Anthony Payne. Ziv Levanon, he's not new. Oh, my God. They're all cheering for the Ohio State Buckeyes, Julia. Huh?
Yes. Well, that serves you right.
Michigan, as you probably know, Magnus, Michigan and Ohio State are two of the great rivalries in at least sports in this country, certainly in college sports. John Philip Cadwallader is in Airlie Beach, one of the most beautiful places. You've been there, Julia?
I know.
It's up in Queensland. It's on the, I guess, the Gold Coast, but it's beautiful. Josh Tozo, welcome back. Thanks,
been
Josh.
The Gold Coast.
To the book of Tozo saying, welcome back to the book of face. Yeah, okay, we're back to the book of face. Wingrove is Bill Wingrove down in Tampa. Magnus sounds like Marty Feldman in a way. My mother, who is often on here, and probably is today, Magnus, she says that you look like a cross between my brother Marty and myself and a guy called Jeff Cox, who's another family friend. I don't know if that's true. Magnus has one of those faces. He looks like somebody we all know, right?
Yes.
Okay. Rob Clay, Art Bandy. Who else is on here? Stingray. We meant Fabian Harrelson likes your pun. The bar, BAR, is set high. Monica Diaz is in Spain. Okay, the global audience. There's a new name, Grace Huldershaw. Hello, Grace. Andrew Watson and so on. Paul Mello is in Newport, Rhode Island. And on and on and on and on and on. Okay, you guys are all commenting. You can make fun of me, and don't make fun of Julie. You can make fun of Magnus all you want. We appreciate it. All right. Let's get on with today's show. Thanks for joining us. Hola, amigos. Monica Diaz says, Will Oxley is on. Airlie Beach, only about 14 hours drive north of the goal. Okay, so it's way up there. It's even further north. Thank you, Will, for setting us straight. Patrick Dyer, good to see you back. Mikkel Thomason, let us hear more from Magnus. Yeah, we're going to cover that extensively, Mikkel, in just a sec. It's the Ohio State. Suchiya is saying, well, let's get on with it. Okay, enough. With that comment from Suchiya, I can't take any more. Ohio State. Cupdate for the AC 36 Cupdate for today, for what is this, the 11th of December. And I'll start with a little video, brief one, get you in the mood, from americascup.com. As I said, it was brief. It was brief, and that's of course because they're racing. This first regatta starts in 5 days' time. It's the 12th. It's Saturday the 12th down in New Zealand, 10:19 in the morning in Auckland, and they start on the 17th, which is Thursday. But that means we're going to be watching it here in the States on Wednesday night because they're, of course, a day ahead of us. The Rule69Blog by our star guest today, he wrote an article on the 10th of December called Panic Stations. And I'm just going to read a little bit of it to you and then ask Magnus for more comment, because this was the thing that got everybody really, some people up in arms, other people saying right on, other people saying it's starting to pay attention to the Cup when you see good prose like this, whether or not you agree with it. Magnus wrote, "We've all experienced the utterly deflating feeling of hauling a boat that is at least 2 clicks slower around a race course. You come off the line, you use your talent to get the first 2 shifts right, but in the drag race to the lay line, you just can't keep up." For most of us, that's our honest story week in, week out. It's our honest story week in and week out. It's depressing. You don't have the sails. Your hull is covered with weed. And that kicker block, meaning boom vang, if you're a North American, that you've been meaning to replace for months, just gave up the ghost. Your crew are great and loyal, but they're a mix of estate agents, accountants. I got to put Magnus in this shot. See his look on his face. This is great. So, estate agent, real estate agents, accountants in your family, and let's be honest, they are only here for the swift ale in the bar afterwards, or to chat up that blonde who does the foredeck on the boat. Way out in front. It's nice to be on the water, you kid yourself. At least you're not gardening or putting up those shelves in the spare room. But let's face it, you will never win apart from that one race at the end of the season where you lucked out and put a half-decent performance together. And that ensures you'll be back. Magnus, shall I carry on and read a little more here? Let me read.
Yeah, I just think that's everybody's, most people's story. I mean, very, very, very few of us ever get the chance to sail at America's Cup level and, or even just experience the Cup. And, what I try and do with my blog is just kind of relate it back to things that are going to amuse people. And, why we love this sport. Why we do this sport. Everybody watching this is a sailor. Everybody watching it is, they know the frustrations. And, you all know the people in the fleet that spend that little bit extra time, that little bit extra money. And, you kind of look at them and you go, one day, maybe I can get that. And, in the course of a season, you have a race where you do really well. But, hauling a boat that is, I experience it every time I go sailing. It's not, it could be better, and this is, and then you relate that into the America's Cup, and that article goes on to explain, and it's where the controversy comes in. That you look at Team Ineos, it's a no excuse to lose campaign. They've brought in Mercedes F1, into this game. They have put out videos that are showcasing incredible design. 120 million pounds being spent. So the expectation level is just so high with that team. And all I have relayed is the evidence that we've seen at the moment that it mattered on the water, and they're sitting on the sidelines and they can't race.
You wrote this on Tuesday, right? And that was the first day of practice racing after they didn't race. Let me go on here and read. Well, imagine how you'd feel if you just apropos Ineos Team UK. Imagine how you'd feel if you just blown 120 million pounds, which is what, 150 US or more, of someone else's money, and have an absolutely balls out racing machine laden with some of the best sailors on the planet, a supercomputer or two to measure 1 billion points of data a day, and you're still way off the pace. The first time you take it to a race course, it breaks, meaning Tuesday when they were going out there to join in the practice racing. You then scuttle back to the base, close the doors, and silently weep. The management are all at each other's throats, and the billionaire owner is breathing heavily down your neck. You don't even have a blonde in the bar to chase. It's depressing. Well, that's what's happening in New Zealand right now with Ratties, meaning Sir James Ratcliffe, Ratties Rita being the name of all of Ben's boats since his Olympic days, looking like the lamest of lame ducks, and the rest of the fleet and commentators dumbfounded as to where it has all gone wrong. Magnus.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a commentator, and I'm sitting there looking at it going, if you want to take on the New Zealanders, you want to take on the Kiwis, and you want to go and win in their backyard, let's relate this to rugby. And before every rugby match, the New Zealand All Blacks, they do a thing called the haka, and it is an ancient tradition, and it is a challenge, and it lays down a challenge to you in front of you. And it's one of the greatest spectacles in world sport, seeing these guys doing it. And the challenge is being laid down right now by Team New Zealand in the America's Cup. If you want to front that and you want to beat them, you've got to go head to head. You've got to go toe to toe, and you've got to say, we're here, and we're gonna beat you on every single race, and we're going to be up for every single race, and we're going to really take the fight to you. And what's disappointing, and I say it's disappointing, and it's they look like lame ducks sitting there, is that all of the spies that are out on the water, everybody who's looking at this is saying, that boat doesn't look right. There's something not quite right with it. They're sailing it slightly differently. And then, I find it extraordinary. The New Zealand Herald has the front cover today saying, that it's full of inaccuracies. No, it's not. It's observations. And I know the truth hurts, but you've got to get on the front foot here, guys. You're not going to win.
I'll read some more of it. Let me break in here and I'll read some more of it, because Yarvahe, who's one of our best and most regular FOSI, what evidence of people at each other's throats? He's calling BS on that. And I'll preface the question by saying you and I have friends on all these teams. We talk, and people, it's astonishing sometimes how much people like to talk and tell you what they know and what they're hearing. And I suppose you, like I, always talk to 2 or 3 or more sources before you go with something. Is that right?
Correct. And let's be very honest here. This isn't new. This is quite. There have been rumors around this ever since the team was taken over. It's been quite a leaky media ship. Now I've been out of it, and I haven't said anything. And, I've heard, and I've had it corroborated, and I've had text messages, I've had emails, I've had all sorts of things saying that, there is a bit of discord in there. Now, they're not going to, they're going to deny that. Of course they are. But there are some. I said it, there's some dark characters in there. There's some very driven individuals. And, when things start going wrong, they don't want to be on the wrong side of the argument. So I say that they're not afraid to throw people under the bus. And this is a very typical British challenge. This, and as much as I want it to be something different, and what Sir James Ratcliffe has done, putting 120 million pounds on the table when really nobody else would, is incredible. And I'm not having a go at him. I'm not having a go. I was trying to set a scene that, if there is that infighting, they've got to sort it out. They've got to, this is the America's Cup now. This is the end of the cycle. This isn't the beginning of the cycle. By the time you come to the competition, you've got to be on the game.
Okay, let me read some more. And people are still scratching their heads. Some people are disagreeing strongly, right, Julia? You're looking at some of these comments.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Let me read some more, and then we'll get into it and get into the other teams, because you had some comments about them. And of course, we've been, Magnus, I haven't been reporting internal issues or problems. I've been hearing, that too, but I'm not as authoritative and I don't have as close as sources as do you, but I've been hearing the boat's been off the pace since, B1, of course, which was scrapped for being off the pace, and then B2 has not, the strange shape that it is, has not proven to be too quick. It sounds like from all accounts. It's dark. You also continue with your article from the 10th of December. It's dark times as the British America's Cup team scratch their heads over the speed conundrum they face, and I'm hearing the first rumblings of discord in the team with morale at rock bottom. To be honest, those rumors have been around since the start and the takeover of BAR way back when. There are some dark characters at work in this team, unafraid to throw colleagues under the bus and shift the blame relentlessly, but something has gone terribly wrong and the clock is ticking. They didn't compete in the first tune-ups and were resolutely in the shed today trying to fix issues with the mast, but it's their on-the-water performance whilst tuning up that have set the alarm bells ringing. I don't need to read any more than that, but let's talk about what the issue is, because you're hearing something different than the mast.
Yeah, so they're saying it's the New Zealand Herald is reporting this morning that it's a small hydraulic issue. Well, I'm sorry. That may well be the case, and I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But just remember that in the last 5 days, the number of tacks and jibes and bearaways they've done is incredible. And I think there's more stuff going on here.
Well, and it's not just Ineos Team UK, but you concluded the article. I've skipped ahead to the end. December 18th could be a horrible day for Team Ineos. 2 races against Team New Zealand, the All Blacks of yachting, who will take no prisoners. And by the way, Mark Michelson, did you see that, Julia? Mark Michelson has put a link to the Haka. YouTube of the Haka. I can't believe there's anyone on this show who does not know
what the Haka is.
We've all seen it, and we all celebrate it, and in New Zealand for the Cup. And,
right.
Okay, so you went on to say ETNZ are a ruthless killing machine, as evidenced yesterday in their cruise to victory over Team Product. To get anywhere close to their level will be nigh on impossible, not just for Team Ineos, but for the rest of the challengers. They look like they have speed to burn all around the course, and remember, they will be sandbagging, easing off the throttle at every opportunity. The only unknown for TNZ is Ineos, but I don't see any cause for concern from the Kiwis. They are up for the challenge, and remember, when you have a fast boat, you become a tactical genius, which of course is true.
Yes.
And then you concluded by saying, hard times for the Brits. Hard times.
Yeah, it's hard, but it's not insurmountable. And you just look at that Team New Zealand boat, and it's awesome. It's almost a generation ahead, and the aero nature of it, the little details, the foils, and then you've got Burling, Chute. You've got the whole. You've got some real experience in the back there. And you just, how the hell is any challenger gonna take them on? And when you watch them sailing, they're a click higher upwind, they're a click faster, and then downwind, they've got the whole package. They're lower and faster, and you go, okay, to take them on is going to be. I mean, and Ben has acknowledged it, and Ben's a fantastic guy, fantastic sailor. He knows the game better than anybody. He's won the Cup. He's led 2 teams now. He really knows what he's talking about. He said in a video that it's going to be the hardest challenge, the hardest challenge. I think the hardest challenge for Team Ineos is going to be getting through the Challenger Series. I think, Jimmy Spithill is looking good. Patriot, there's some really, really bright guys there, and they won't be slow. They'll be there or thereabouts. So Team Ineos has got it all on just to get through the Challenger Series. It's almost forget the Kiwis. And I said in a post today, which I think you're going to come on to, but I said in the post today, it's raised the white flag time, because it's going to be very, very, very difficult for these guys to compete with them. And the other thing that I'm really, really impressed with the New Zealanders is the team, the team aspect to it. Other than Grant Dalton, there's a very flat structure there. And, you see it in the other teams. There's a pecking order and things, and it does not quite working. It's not, Team New Zealand is Team New Zealand. And, everyone else puts team at the front of their name, but I'm not sure they mean it. And Team New Zealand is going to be, and I said it, put your house on it. They're going to win this.
Mm. You ran this photo. Is this, with that article, is this B2 or B1?
That was the picture taken on Tuesday as they waited.
So it is B2. So when they were having their problems on Tuesday, body language not great, obviously.
No.
Was that a Gilles Martin-Raget photo? Do we know?
Photo Sport one, actually.
Okay, and of course we all know Grant Simmer here. I'll take you out of that shot. Grunter, as he's known, on the second from the right, who is the team's CEO, and Grant won the Cup in '83 with Australia 2. He's one of the brightest and best guys in the sport. He was a senior serious guy in Alinghi when they were winning in 03 and 07, carried on even after Russell. He was with us, with Oracle Team USA, when we won and had the big comeback in 2013. So, he knows what he's doing. Do you know who the rest of these guys are?
No.
Okay. But
we speculate on the guy in the, who's got his face covered up.
Not the guy I've just covered up with your PIP with a picture. We have no idea who this. There's a lot of speculation on the internet who this covered up, the hoodie and the got the mask on and the sunglasses. Some people thought it was Tom Slingsby. Some people thought it was Nathan Outeridge, that maybe they'd recruited yet another foiling expert into the brood, but we don't know that for sure.
It'd be amazing if it is.
It could be. Well, okay, that's there's a lot of pushback. That's Zabi Fernandez driving for Grant Simmer. Okay, so that makes sense. And now I recognize him. Thank you for that, Chris Exley. He doesn't know shot. Yarva, he's saying. Okay. Yeah, the boat's broke. Body language isn't going to be brilliant, is it, James Longberg? There are a lot of people who are pushing back here and saying, why are you guys so down on the British team? They haven't even begun to race. Yeah,
I mean, and that's a very fair comment. And all of your contributors are right. The job of a pundit is to look at the available data, speak to the teams, and speak to their contacts, and make a considered opinion on it. I've called it, and it blows up. People don't like it when it blows up, and this is the America's Cup. This is a classic America's Cup story. As I said, if it was Team Prada that was a little bit slow, everyone would just, okay, fair enough. They might get there at the end. But Paul Mignon, it's a big story. And, you speak to other people on the other teams, and you speak to some of the people who are on the water covering this. And I wish I was down there. And, they've been talking about, and I've hated hearing it, that I've heard it being called agricultural. I've heard the foils being called industrial. And, it's kind of Bermuda repeating itself. And I pray that it's not. And I would love to be wrong. I really would love to be wrong. Mm. But on the evidence that we're seeing, that's what a pundit is there and a blogger is there to bring to life and to start the debate, start the conversation. And like I say, it does bring interest to the Cup, and people started to wake up to this. And there's been very little commentary, very little analysis really done anywhere. You look around the internet, you look on the papers. The British media has largely discounted the America's Cup. It's a freak show, and this is raising the tempo, and welcome to the Cup.
So a lot of people are identifying Goobs there on the far left as obviously Ian Jensen, Andrew McPherson, and others. John Emmett have done that. Thank you for that. And we still don't know, though, who the mystery man is, second from the left. And we'll figure that out. It could be anybody. But whether it's somebody trying to remain disguised from
or it's just cold.
Or it's just cold and trying not to give the bloody COVID to anybody. Okay, Magnus, now let's one last thing about Ineos that we ran on the show on Tuesday, and a lot of people in the UK, forget about the Cup, are not amused about this. What's your thinking on all of that?
Look, Sir James Ratcliffe is a one of the richest men in the world. He has to make commercial decisions. Do I agree with that? Well, obviously not, because you'd love to see the car being built in Wales. The guy was a backer of Brexit, and he's moved to Monaco. But look, he's a businessman, and do I agree with what Larry Ellison did with Oracle? Do I agree with what Ernesto Bertarelli did with a pharmaceuticals company? These guys live in a very, very different planet, and all I would say about Jim Ratcliffe is I'm what he's done for British sailing and for British America's Cup is just phenomenal, and sticking 120 million pounds down on the table, almost no questions asked after a meeting in a pub, it's pretty awesome. And we're in dream territory. Do I agree with not building the Grenadier in Wales. Look, I don't operate in that circle, but on the face of it, not really. But it's a commercial decision, and it's being built in France.
Well, that's what I always say. Anytime someone criticizes Larry, and I haven't worked for him since 2013, since the end of the 2013 Cup, but I did work for him from 2000 until for 13 years, I guess 2013. And the guy's put, if not counting Sail GP, I don't know what he's put in for Sail GP, a couple $100 million, I guess. So he's got to be order of magnitude of $1 billion into the sport and putting a lot of bread on the table for a lot of people, and for which we're eternally grateful.
Yeah, without these guys putting their money on the table, it's the America's Cup is a very, very difficult game. It's very expensive, and sponsors don't queue up for this. It needs to be driven by and it was ever thus. You remember, Tom, when we first met way back when at the 2002 Cup. There were teams there trying to be commercial and trying to sell a sponsorship package. It won't cover the cost. You've got to have somebody who says, right, here we go, put the money on the table. There you go, and I don't care. And there's so many shipwrecks on the shore of the America's Cup, and the ambition to win it. You probably need 3 or 4 cycles to win the cup from a standing start. If you think where Ben is now, this is cycle 2.
There's a lot of speculation here on this photo. Some people think it's Russell Coutts. I don't think so. Some Rodian Luca thinks it looks like Nathan Outeridge. And I know one of the people online said, well, he's taken his wedding ring off and he's got a tan line, because you can see, and he is married, of course. It's not Ratcliffe. I don't think Ratcliffe's on there. A lot of comments back and forth. Are you pro, while we're on COVID, because we do talk about things that are affecting all of us, not just because sailing, we're all sailors and we are affected, especially the global crowd here we have on this show, people from literally Rodian Lucas in the Ukraine to South Africa to across Europe, North America, South America, Australia, New Zealand in particular. But are you pro? You work in the city. You work in the finance business in London City. Are you pro-Brexit, anti-Brexit? It sounds like there isn't going to be a deal with the EU before Brexit happens at the end of this year. Is that true?
Well, that's what Boris is saying. And all I can think is that 20 miles away from us is the largest market in the world. And I personally, I would rather stay in the union, but it's a democratic decision, and you have to respect that. And we've faffed around with it for 4 years, and it all comes down to the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th minute. It's always the history of doing deals with the European Union always come down to the last minute, and there's things stage managed. But it at the moment, right now, it's not looking likely, and we can look forward to a period of relative chaos as an island nation dependent on imports.
So it sounds like you are anti-Brexit.
Yeah, I'm not a supporter of Brexit.
You're not a supporter. Just update us, would you? I got to get Andrew McIrvin back on here. I was texting with him back and forth this morning, and we're going to talk about his views a little bit about the World Sailing Olympic offshore situation. But we're in lockdown here again, though not all of, but most of the state of California now. We are under orders not to leave home, probably for 3, 4, 5 weeks, as they are dealing with the surge in the COVID here before the vaccine comes, which sounds like next week some of the frontline workers, the medical people, are going to get it. What's your situation in the UK?
Yeah, so we've gone into a tiered system. So you have tier 1, 2, and 3. And London currently is in tier 2, which is the kind of, the restaurants are still open, the pubs are open, the shops are open, the schools are open. But there's restrictions on how many people can go into certain places and socialize in groups. The Isle of Wight, where I'll be going tomorrow, is in tier 1, but it's very likely that London's having a real surge at the moment, and will go into tier 3 just in time for Christmas, which is great. But yeah, it's a terrible situation. It really is, and it affects us all. And I've got a colleague who's got it at the moment. You've got family members with it. I just wish everyone, the very best and get well soon, because we need that vaccine, and we need, it would be nice to get back to whatever normal looks like after this. It would be nice to get back to that.
We ran a video that some guy coming out of the Guy Hospital? Is that in hospital in London? And the CNN was camped out in front of the hospital with a guy doing a stand-up, and some older gentleman came out and he grabbed him and said, "Well, have you been?" "Yeah, I've just got this jab, as you would call it." And the guy went, "I don't know if you saw the tape. We ran it on the show on Tuesday. It was hilarious." He said, "Yeah, they asked me a bunch of stupid questions, and I'm just happy to get the jab, and in due course, after I get the second one, I can go I can go hug my grandchildren again." So.
Did you hear the guy who was second to get the vaccine was called William Shakespeare?
No, really?
Yes.
Is that true?
Uh-huh.
Did you see that?
Yes.
So the lady who got it was Margaret Keenan or something, and the second guy was William Shakespeare. I mean, it's just brilliant.
His friends call him Bill.
No relation to the Bard, I suppose.
Well, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, let's go back to the Cup, because that's what most people are. Yarvahe is saying the pubs aren't open in the UK, and Brexit and COVID going to be a disaster. Say on the AC, and here the clubs are closed down. Our St. Francis now has tried to have outdoor dining on and off for the last 4, 5, 6 months. They had indoor dining briefly, right, Julia?
Yeah, very briefly. And
then back to outdoor dining, and now all dining, indoors and outdoors. In fact, with people ordered not to leave their homes, they've just shut down, and a couple members of the staff have gotten COVID, and St. Guy's, John Emmett is saying, is the name of that hospital.
Sitting outside the St. Francis Yacht Club is cold in the middle of summer. So, I mean, I have no idea. I remember sailing a Lingy, when you had the, what was that cup called that we did down there, Tom?
The Brute Cup.
No. It was another one. We all got to sail on a Lingy and sail it under the Golden Gate Bridge.
That was after we won in 2003.
OA Cup?
Yeah, we had the Moet Cup here, and then we had the UBS Trophy in Newport, Rhode Island. That's right. That was a terrific event. You had owner, driver, and the professionals. Julia, you remember that?
I do.
And it was a terrific event. Both of those events were.
And then Larry led off he did the most incredible firework display I've ever seen.
Yes.
And apparently all the residents of Sausalito and the Bay Area were all complaining that they thought they were under attack.
Well, the people in the marina, which is where we are, the Beach Street Yacht Club is, and our studios. Beach Street Yacht Club, as you probably know, is Julia's townhouse here in the marina. And the people in the marina were complaining about the noise. It was the most, compare, Sydney New Year's Eve fireworks, some of the Valencia. Were you in Valencia for any of those fireworks? That's the fireworks capital of the world outside of China, I guess. Fantastic. Okay, let's press on with the Cup, because that practice racing, which took place then, was supposed to be augmented on a second day of racing, which was Thursday, the 10th. And neither Ineos nor American Magic showed up for practice day 2, the second day of official practice racing, but ET and Z Luna Rossa made it onto the water. Sorry, only ET and Z and LRPP made it onto the water. Ben Aisley's team, Ineos Team UK, and the American Magic decided to give it a miss. I pulled that from my new friend, no pun intended, Gerald New, at sailweb.co.uk, who runs a tidy little, not as spicy website as do you, Marcus. Magnus.
Leave that picture up. There's you look at the sail plan. Look at the jib on those two. So you've got a little square top jib on the Kiwis, and you had a much smaller sail plan on Prada. Now I've read loads of commentary, and I genuinely do not know, but there's a little rumor going around that Prada may not have been absolutely putting the pedal to the metal in that race. Mm-hmm. If that's the case, Prada could be quick, and with Jimmy Spithill, as I said in a blog post, he hauls boats around race courses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, I think the bigger everyone's going to sandbag. Everybody's going to put the handbrake on from time to time, but you don't the competitive look. I've been doing the Cup since 1980. You've been doing it since I don't know when. Sometimes 80 was your first Cup 87.
Yeah, I was following it in 87.
Yeah, so the competitive juices kick in. People want to go out and see how they really are. And what we saw the other day was it almost looked like ETNZ was purposely trying to lose the starts and then sail past the competition to demoralize them, which is why you and I and other keen observers have been saying, well, geez, that looks a little dice. Yeah. That looks a little tough. But go back to this picture for a second, Magnus. I think the biggest issue for these teams, the sail plans are, okay, you're going to have bigger and smaller sails, and New York's tried a smaller main. The big deal's in these foils. And you can see here quite plainly, even though this is not zoomed in, you can see the difference in the angle and heat of the foils. And you got Team New Zealand with very high aspect ratio, long, lean foils, and they have managed somehow to get good lift from a combination of the hull and the foils. And smaller, higher aspect ratio foils mean less drag. And then you got these fairly big, draggy-looking foils there on LRPP, to say nothing of the foils we saw and have seen on Ineos Team UK.
Yeah, I think it's all in the small details now. And, the Team New Zealand, you'll know this, Tom, when you win the Cup, you make the rules, right? And
well, in concert. I mean, it still has to be mutual consent. You don't just dictate all the rules. But yeah, go ahead.
But you can, the development programs can start, and it's just becoming very obvious that Team New Zealand are very, very, very rapid.
Mm. Well, the Commodore of St. Francis Yacht Club is on here, says, hi, Ken Glidewell. You talk about drawing the short straw and having this year for Commodore Glidewell.
Yeah.
And he's become a good friend, and he's done a terrific job marshaling, if that's the right word, guiding the club through, Julia, this very difficult period.
Yes, none of the joys and all of the trauma.
Well, and worse than that, major trauma, much more trauma than usual. And he is saying, he's got another comment on here, pithy. He was reminding us it was the Moet Cup.
Yeah.
Moet Cup. That was a terrific event. Well, that's because here on the bay, Julia, it is
iconically beautiful and reliably windy.
Which is what the sport, Magnus, and that's why everyone says the 87 Cup in Frio was so wonderful, because there were big seas and sparkling sun and lots of breeze and 17 teams. There were 4 defenders and 13 challengers. And of course, that is the only defense. We keep bringing this up, but being a bit of a Cup historian, it's the only defense that the defender, after winning, did not successfully defend on their first go. And we've all known that the Kiwis have a big advantage, home court advantage, first defense advantage, making the rules advantage, or shoving them down the challenger's throat. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it was a different era back then, wasn't it? And they were sailing in boats that, if we go back to my blog post of saying of how most of us sail, with a mainsail, a jib, and a spinnaker. And then when the 87 Cup came around, it was in big seas, huge broaches. I mean, I've even got it now. I've got hair standing up on the back of my neck when I think of the White Crusader versus Stars and Stripes race in the big breeze, Harold Cutler versus Dennis Conner. It was just a phenomenal spectacle, and it was televised for the first time, and it had everything. And I think all of the custodians of the Cup since have wanted to try and get back to, and it's a kind of a question that they all go, oh God, okay, we're trying to make it like the 87 Cup, but we all look back with misty eyes to it. There's been some terrific Cups since then. I mean, I think the 2003 Cup was amazing. I mean, I was lucky enough to be on media boats behind Alinghi in that first race where Team New Zealand was ahead at the top mark. the Alinghi came around, tack-jibe set, and then just ground them down all the way down that run. And it was just phenomenal. There's been some great sailing. And, since we've gone to foiling cats, we've started to overlay graphics. We've started to make it more accessible and understandable for people. And, you have people commenting and talking and, asking about boundaries but it's a very different sailing to what anybody else will go and experience. It's Formula One on the water, and this is maybe where the New York Yacht Club are pushing that. How do we get this to be more relevant? How do we get this to be cheaper? How do we get this more accessible? It's a very, very difficult conundrum.
We're going to talk about the conference call New York Yacht Club had with 30-odd clubs and former America's Cup principals they did on Monday, and get your and other people's reaction to that. In the meantime, there's some other comments coming in here, Magnus, that I want you and Julie to hear. Andrew Pindar saying, my parents, a very young 90 and 93, are booked in for their jabs, their vaccinations on Tuesday, whilst our young doctor daughter, Zoe, has just tested positive and is in isolation for the next 10 days. Well, at least she's young and probably fit. Question from Scott McLeod. Now, do you remember Scott, who is the esteemed commercial director for New York Yacht Club's American Magic, and has, he's got the World Match Racing Tour going, and he's been at the forefront of a lot of the good commercial developments in the sport of late. Scott saying, when Magnus was a sailing journo, who did he write for back in the day?
Oh, God. So I had a gig with the Financial Times. I've written for the Times. I've written for Yachts and Yachting, Seahorse, New Zealand Herald. I actually ended up writing for Oracle as well.
Yep.
Yeah, so a few outlets. Doesn't pay the bills, though.
But it's fun.
Okay, so this is a bit of a pithy comment, because we've been calling that protuberance off the bottom of the Ineos boat. We've been calling it Ben's Bulge. And we have Grant's Grundle, which is similar on the bottom of the ETNZ boat. And we won't tell you what people are calling Patricio's boys.
No.
There were some nominations for that this morning. But one hears that the biggest problems Team Ineos has is the size of Ben's Bulge. Jonathan Frank wants to know, so does size matter? This serious question is that stuff they're dragging around, is that just not worked? Is that a Formula One?
There's very logical science behind it all. It's trying to make the boat lift out of the water and then form that. There's the wing and the bottom part of the boat and how it connects with the water. It's just like a Formula One car tries to get as low as possible to the ground. They're trying to get low. They're trying to get the wetted service area out. So that's. You get into the kind of boring aerodynamicist, and I'm sure Seahorse will have a massive piece of analysis on that, which we would all read and pretend to understand. But I think the problems for Team Ineos is are probably greater than the design at the moment.
Jody Shields is saying, I've said it a million times, give or take a few, it's all about aero and low drag option on the entire package across the whole range. Kiwis are all over it.
Yeah, and the Kiwis with that flared midsection, when you see them sailing along, I think there's like one little helmet that's just about out of the cockpit. Everyone else has got bodies everywhere. And, I think when I say they're kind of probably a generation, they're probably half a generation ahead. It's where everybody would want to be and then just backed away from it. But all the designers will be crunching the data. They've all got huge supercomputers. We've already seen significant changes to the Prada boat. The bow has changed considerably from when it launched. Tom, you know this better than anybody. When you give clever people time, and money, and you give them the opportunity to do it, you see what Oracle did, in the San Francisco Cup, and they 8-1 down or whatever they were. You can come back and you can do it, and I will be my blogs will change rapidly, to be the biggest supporter of Team Ineos when they get racing and when they get going and they start winning. And, but the warning signs are there at the moment. And some of the emails and some of the texts that I've had, I could almost cry, at what I'm hearing and reading. It's kind of like not again. And I just hope, I hope I'm being fed because, the America's Cup is a game, remember. And, Tom, you've been around it long enough. I've been fed stories and published stories and published quotes and put pressure on people. When I didn't realize I was being played. Maybe I'm being played this time, and and I really hope that's the case, and that Team Ineos is a rocket ship that is going to absolutely, because it would be a great story. Bringing it back home, bringing it back to the UK would be the most fantastic story. I think we would see 10, 12 challenges. I think we would, it's an accessible place, and I think the infrastructure is here. And it would be a terrific story for the Cup.
Well, likewise, if New York were to bring it back here, and to say nothing if Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli win and finally take it to Italia, because that country, like France and New Zealand, but as a much bigger country, is sailing crazy, and it would be massively good for the sport. A couple other questions here and comments. What do you think, and this is Scott asking again, what do you think of this, and is this why you jumped back in, what do you think of the current state of sailing or yachting journalism?
I think it's terrible. Look, I cut my teeth, and I have the biggest respect for people like Bob Fisher, Stuart Alexander, and why Bob Fisher isn't Sir Bob, I'll never know. I campaigned for it, but he's never got it. They had the keenest eye. They could see through people. And unfortunately, those guys have stepped back a little bit. And the younger pups coming through, in the last 10 years, we haven't seen great journalism. We see an awful lot of trotting out of press releases.
Cut and paste journalism, as I call it.
Changed, and it astonishes me that, as I say, I launched a blog. We come out with, some commentary and some observations, and we try and make it funny. We're not trying to take anyone's jobs here. We're not trying to do anything. We're not trying to make any money out of it, and it blows up. It goes around the world. Clearly there's a demand. Clearly there is a demand for commentary. Clearly there is a place for blogs, and the media game has changed. And look at this. We're on a you're in San Francisco. I'm in London, and it's a new world. And but I just don't see too much analysis. And the British yachting press at the moment, the national papers don't cover the sport.
Well, I think that's true all over except in Auckland at this point.
Yeah.
A little bit in Italy, you see in Gazzella della Sport.
Della Sporta, yeah.
Sporta. So, just on a couple other comments here, Andrew McIrvin, who's weighed in. Thank you, Mr. Dr. McIrvin, the Secretary General of the MAXI Association, and is several times been on the show. Healthcare workers are 9 times more likely to get COVID. Not exactly a surprise. My son, also a junior doctor, tested positive a month ago, fortunately recovered. So that's a little COVID comment.
That's awful.
And don't forget, Jody Shields is saying, and I think Jody's right, don't forget Glenn Ashby, who is one of the best sailors in the world, especially multi-hull type sailors, foiling type sailor. I mean, the guy's just a magnificent sailor. Yeah. And I've said repeatedly, Julia and I have said on this show, that you don't have to look much further than Burke and then the Kiwis guys on that boat, Tuke and Burling, who are silver medalist, gold medalist, America's Cup winner, looked like odds-on favorite to win the gold medal again if the Olympics happens in Tokyo in the 49er class, and right now are looking pretty strong in the America's Cup. Are there any better sailors than those two guys?
I'm going to ask you a question, Tom. If you to save your life, you had to choose one sailor in the world to race in one design mano and mano, who do you pick? Do you pick Ainsley or do you pick Burling? Personally, having seen what Ben can do, having been at the Athens Olympics where he was out the back, he'd just been protested out by the Russian. And I spoke to Ben just afterwards, just around the back of the media center, and he said, well, I won't say what he said, but it was laden with expletives, and he said, just watch it. And he went out and destroyed the fleet. I've never seen anything like it. And Burling is a great, great sailor. But if I had to, when it's under pressure, my money's on Ben.
Yeah, that's a hard call, and it depending on what boat, I think it really is quite a bit more boat specific. If it were a Finn or maybe a laser, you'd take Ben, but if it's a 49er or maybe a Nacra or something like that, I think you'd be hard pressed to pick Pete Burling over Ben, but there would be some other names in there too. It's what a wonderful sport and diverse sport. We've got all these cool people, including all of you on here watching. Well over 100 people have joined us live for our return,
Yay.
Julia, to Facebook. And we're, again, delighted to have you all here. We're in about an hour now, a little after 2 o'clock here in the Beach Street Yacht Club in San Francisco, where I'm here with my co-host, Julia Vedekint, and we're going to get on with some more America's Cup stuff. I'm your host, Tom Ehman, of course, and we have Magnus Wheatley joining us live via Skype from London. And we'll carry on with the Cup, Magnus. This is this report I showed you in the tech check we both like a lot, and I like this website. I like Live, Sail, Die, and I particularly like Cam Dunn and Chris Steele, who've now done, they've done 2 reports. And I'll take you out of the PIP and run this video now and see what you all think.
Here we are on Thursday the 10th out here on Course E for our second day of practice racing. It's Cameron Dunn here with Live, Sail, Die and Chris Steele. And Chris, today we didn't see a lot of sailing, unfortunately. We've had only 2 teams out here, Emirates Team New Zealand and Luna Rossa, with both the American Magic and Ineos not showing up today, so we can only assume they've got some bigger issues back at the base to deal with than coming out and racing, which is a bit unfortunate for them for sure. But I'm sure these guys today that are out here got a lot out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. We had sort of maybe 18 up to 20 knots from the northwest and a little bit of a lumpy sea state, so upper end for the wind range for these guys to be racing in. Not a lot of engagement in the pre-start between the Italians and the Kiwis, but we saw a couple of pretty good lineups with the boats doing kind of one lap just to the top mark and back down to the bottom. Again, like pretty positive signs for the Kiwis, I think, although definitely had a little bit of a different setup with the head sails than the Italians, so it kind of looked like the Kiwis might have been carrying a little bit more sail area, but again, looking like they're a click faster, particularly upwind, and then probably a bit smoother in the maneuvers as well. So they kind of added up to probably 20 to 30 second deltas in each of those one lap races. So yeah, probably pretty positive signs like we said, but different setup. So it's still pretty hard to draw any real sort of conclusions to that moving forward. But yeah, it was interesting day. There was a bit of a rain. And pretty cool to see both these guys out here in the upper wind range. And like you said, Cam, but shame not to see the other 2 guys out here. Do you think it's maybe issues that they're having with the equipment, or do you think they're trying to make some last minute changes building up to the Christmas Cup?
Oh, I think I would have to assume that they've got some gear damage from the other day, or something's going on that they obviously need to be fully prepared for the Christmas Cup next week. I'm sure they're not out here for any good reason. They would desperately want to be out here, especially Ineos. To lose 2 days, they'll be scratching their heads back home, but we don't know what it is. But yeah, today I was really impressed with Team New Zealand upwind. We don't like to jump to conclusions this early in the piece, but so far 2 days, the performance has been substantially better than the other team they've raced against. They really upwind today. They look very dominant over Luna Rossa. Yeah, the pre-starts were a bit of a mixed bag. Teams entering a bit late, just trying to find their feet and figure out where they were. But the lineups we saw, Team New Zealand really did have the legs over them. Bigger sail area, certainly a bigger looking mainsail and bigger jibs, which was an interesting point. So whether that played a factor in the performance, we'll find out over the next coming days.
Okay, Magnus, I'm going to dial that down and let you talk over this video. Any other observations? Because you wrote quite a pithy, another article called White Ensign here after that racing. And do you want to make any comments on this?
I mean, it's exactly what I've been saying. I mean, 20, 30 seconds on a two leg course. I mean, that's massive. I mean, if you said a Formula One car, did 20 or 30 seconds faster than another car, it's almost like a different race. And Tom, I sort of herald to what you said about, they were starting behind and then just cruising through. I mean, they look the complete package. They look unbelievable. I've never seen this before. I've never seen a defender come out and be this dominant and look this good.
Well, hang on. That's because you weren't around in 1958, nor was I, but I've read about it. You weren't around in some of the other events where, well, I mean, look at what happened in 95 in San Diego when Russell came out and won 5-0. And we knew going into that finals, I was with Dennis's team then, and we knew going into that finals it was going to be brutal, and it was. And describe for us what a click means. You use it, I use it a lot, and I just heard Chris Steele use the word click, a click higher, a click faster.
Yeah, it's a degree faster, a degree, just a package just a little bit better, a click faster. It's just a turn of phrase, and what we're seeing here is 30 seconds, and remember, Team New Zealand won't be at full bore here. They'll be pushing it. They'll definitely be pushing it, but there's probably more to come. And remember, the Kiwis normally come out with some incredible innovation. I'll be surprised if we don't see something.
You mean the Kiwis themselves will come out with more? They've got more in there. Another arrow in their quiver, so to speak. I think that's probably right. They're not showing everything. And I think Chris, I don't remember if it was Chris or Cam, both of whom are terrific, by the way. I agree with Margarita Marshall saying Cam Dunn is a very good comment. I really like what Live Sail Die is doing. I'll say it again. But the other thing is that we've seen it over and over and over again in the Cup. Back in the 30s, back even before, in the 1930s, even before that. But certainly in the 12-meter era, when you were out and the other team went off the line and they were a click. I can take your titles off here, can't I? And you're click higher and a click faster. And then the handbrake comes on and you kind of dial back. That's what we know. That's what we know is that's what these teams are going through, and that's why they're in the shed. It's not because they're repairing hydraulics or mass. They're scratching their heads and saying, what can we do to make this boat faster? Do we try this setup? Yeah. Do we try this combination of foils? What do we do? And that's what they're really now up against, right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much spot on. I mean, it's a very difficult feeling when you see that performance by Team New Zealand and you're in one of those other teams, and you're now in this. I can't say it enough. This is the end game. The time for analysis and chopping boats up and sticking new foils on. Oh God, I quite liked the defense that came out today of attacking my article, saying it's full of inaccuracies and stuff, and saying we are working through our development cycle. Fantastic. If that's true, brilliant. I hope it is true. Because if it's not true and it's throwing the dice, then, this is going to be a very short, series.
Well, you were on the front page of the New Zealand Herald for saying that ETNZ was going to win, or that they had a leg up on the challengers, particularly on the Brits. I was on the front page. Remember that, Julia?
Yeah.
On the front page of the New Zealand Herald when in the lead up to during the 2017 Cup, we were on here or on something, and I said, maybe I wrote on my blog that they were going to win. It looked like they were more than a click or two faster than everybody else. So I guess it can't hurt to be, but that's not, again, and I want to defend, some of you are quite hard on Magnus. We're on here because we love the sport. We love to see the success, and Magnus writes very positive things. I write and talk about very positive things. And when we have a strong feeling about something, as do many of you, we'll say it. I mean, when I think the non-sailing CEO of World Sailing is a crouton, or thank goodness the president is gone now, I'm happy to say it. And I like, as with you, I hope this is a really close series. I hope this is a great series.
Yes.
With terrific racing, and we'll see in 5 days' time, because that's when it all winds up. I'm going to play some pictures, and you go ahead and keep commentating.
Tom, I've been wrong, and I'm very happy to put my hands up when I am wrong. You just go on the evidence that you see. I remember standing on the back of a media boat, and the great Olin Stevens was there. And he looked out, and he looked at the New Zealand boat with the hula, and he just went, "That doesn't look right."
This was 2003.
Yeah. And he said, and we were all, I mean, literally everybody was, hanging on the feet of the master and every word of the master. And he just said, "That hula doesn't look right." And everyone was like, "Wow, what does that mean?" And I don't claim to be anywhere close to Olin Stevens in any shape, way, or form. But I look at Team Ineos and just think current form doesn't look right.
It didn't look right when it was launched.
No, and
B2, or B1.
If you look at the front shots of the bow on, it looks I don't know, it just doesn't quite look right. But they have put billions of hours of computer time into this, and it's the result of incredible processes that's gone through. But I look at Prada, it looks a good boat. I look at Team New Zealand and go, that looks a very, very, very fast boat.
Look at this shot. These are all Gilles Martin-Raget photos, some of which apparently maybe they were taken down after they were posted.
Look at that shot. Look at that. Look at the aero nature. I mean, you've got two heads, maybe three heads above, and it's a fantastic machine. Mm. Stern looks right. Wow.
Look at the heads above the parapet there.
Yeah, it's different.
Quite different.
Your commentator saying it's full aero, and it is. I mean, look at the mainsails. Look at it really is. It's down to the little details now, and I'm really curious on Prada. I can't work Prada out whether it's all Jimmy or whether it's the design, what it is. It's a hell of a machine.
It looks fast underwater,
and they've got the coolest gear.
Yeah, always.
You guys.
Yeah.
And the best looking base. We said that on the show again Tuesday.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
jackets.
Sorry?
How do I get one of those jackets without paying for it?
That's a good question. Gilles Martin-Raget, the famously, incomparable French photographer, is down there, sat his 2 weeks quarantine, has been taking not only stills but also video. I didn't see any video from him. He was up obviously in a helicopter for that second day, and this is one of his signature. This is one of his traits. He loves to do these kinds of shots, and looks like an airplane does it.
Photographers are amazing. If you just go back to that other shot, Tom, if that's not the front cover of Seahorse next month,
this one,
yeah, Andrew Hurst and Graham Beeson, that's your front cover right there.
Beautiful stuff.
It is fabulous.
By the incomparable Gilles Martin-Raget. Now, to your point, this showed up in the New Zealand Herald on Friday.
I don't get this.
America's Cup 2020, Luna Rossa boss Max Serena lifts lid on practice races against Team New Zealand, which, of course, took place on their Thursday. Luna Rossa chief executive Max Serena admits Team New Zealand have an edge on the rest of the America's Cup fleet on the evidence of the practice racing so far this week. Although there is this is a story by Michael Burgess in the Herald. Although there is a long, long way to go, Serena concedes that the Kiwi boat has been impressive in the early skirmishes on Auckland Harbor. Quote, As I've said many times, the target, the benchmark, are the Kiwis, Serena told the Herald. Quote, on Thursday, they showed their good speed, especially upwind, so we need to work to improve our performance upwind, even if yesterday, Thursday, we had a few issues, and we're not able to sail on our targets. Magnus?
Yeah, it's a very curious one. I mean, basically, they're absolutely exhausted after the racing. They couldn't sail to their targets, but the boat was working absolutely fine. They had a few issues, but the boat was working fine. I just don't get it. I mean, it's maybe it's lost in translation with Max, but look, they know they've gone up against Team New Zealand, and I would suggest it's been quite a humbling experience. And they know what they've got to do now, and they've got a real fight to get that, to try and eke some speed out, and it's going to be really, really difficult. The Kiwis are only going to get better. That's the problem.
Okay, Julia, we've got so many comments. Nothing better. Mark Orton Reed is saying nothing better right now than GMR up in a helicopter. That's probably why Patriot was in the shed. That's a good one. Yeah. Anyway, that article was the New Zealand Herald on Friday with Max Serena from Italy. Thanks to the Herald for letting us use that. This, as you know, Magnus, is the 44th Street Clubhouse, the grand, yeah, exactly, beautiful clubhouse in Manhattan, Midtown Manhattan, between 5th and 6th, between 5th and the Avenue of the Americas Cup, Avenue of the Americas. The 44th Street Clubhouse, and apropos of nothing, because it was a conference call, not an in-person meeting, but I'll take you out of there again. On Monday, thanks to reporting by Bernie Wilson of the Associated Press, who was given the story today, New York Yacht Club drives conversation about future of the America's Cup. They had a conference call. The 4 teams entered in the 36th America's Cup have yet to pit their fantastical-looking boats against one another, and the New York Yacht Club is already pondering the future of sailing's marquee regatta. With a preliminary regatta just days away in Auckland, New Zealand, the New York Yacht Club hosted a Zoom call involving some 30 clubs and stakeholders on Monday to discuss ways to try to achieve more continuity in a competition that has changed dramatically since 1983. That's when an Australian crew ended New York Yacht Club's 132-year winning streak in the competition for the oldest trophy in international sports. The usual topics were discussed, most notably the exorbitant costs that have limited the number of participating yacht clubs. Other topics included the unpredictability of schedules and location, which impacts the ability to attract corporate sponsors, plummeting TV viewership, stricter nationality rules, and balancing technology with sailing skills. When I saw that, and I knew it was happening, couldn't report on it, and when I saw that, I kind of said, well, deja vu all over again, because that has happened how many times in your recollection, Magnus? I mean, I remember Larry's called a meeting. We had a meeting that New York Yacht Club and others, Hamish Ross, hosted down in Auckland in 02, 03. We did one in Valencia that Larry hosted on his big yacht. And any number of other times, Russell tried to do the deal where he signed up the other teams to a deal, and of course the only team that didn't sign up to the deal was, guess who? Emirates Team New Zealand. They said, no, if we win, we'll go down, we'll get a challenger of record, and we'll figure out what to do, which is exactly what they did. Magnus, do you have a reaction to all this?
Is there a problem here? That's that needs solving. And what the New York Yacht Club is looking at, and probably all the other yacht clubs and the powers that be are looking at it and saying, how do we grow this sport? How do we make it relevant for my 13-year-old who's sitting downstairs at the moment? How do we get them in? How do we hook people? How do we hook the man on the street? Well, the America's Cup, is an incredible spectacle in our sport. And, it was ever thus. You go right back to, Lipton and people. This is very, very wealthy people. The egos are huge. The politics is huge. The intrigue is massive. It's like nothing else. There's nothing else in our sport. Now, whether this goes back to
nothing else like it in the sporting world, not just our sport, right?
I don't know. I mean, you look at Formula One. There's sort of big things there. I mean, there are other sports, but it's billionaires at play, and it has always been. You know, Tom, you work for Larry. You know, we've met people who own Microsoft, and all sorts of characters come into this game, and it's a phenomenal place to operate in. It's scary at times. There's a lot of money being thrown around. Whether it goes back to being, a by-water event, I just don't think it will. I think there's still the allure. I mean, the Brits desperately want to win this cup. They want to bring it back. It's a great story. There will still be, even if we don't win it this time, there will be somebody else who will step forward and we'll try and win it again. The Americans want the cup back. That's a great story. The Italians want it. The Swedes want it. There is money out there. There are people who will get captured in by the romance of the cup, and it is going to be a spectacle for the foreseeable future. I actually look at these boats now and go, and I said today in my blog, I said, is anyone else bored by the racing yet? Once you get over the fact that it flies out of the water, and I think we all got over that with foiling multi-hulls in Bermuda. Once you get over that, it becomes like a drag race, and you go, okay, is this it? And then, the clever graphics come in and the computer overlay. Okay, great. Even myself, as I love watching the Cup. I've watched, every race of the America's Cup for, how many years, I don't know. Even I'm looking at this going, it's another drag race, and if it is the case that Team New Zealand is this far ahead, it's going to be the most boring Cup in history. And the Challenger Series, we're not going to see those big comings together. Yeah. These boats come together. It's like ice yachting. You call an ambulance. You don't call, you don't put a red flag up. But yeah.
I'm actually, there was a thread down in New Zealand and elsewhere about, in fact, one of this guy called Mark Orams, who writes for, and he's called an expert by the New Zealand Herald, and he said, "Oh, well, you all and they're trying to get people's attention or go out and watch in their own, punters in their own power boats. I'm not worried about power boats. Ian Murray will have his super crowd control, and no one will be loud on the race course even now during the I'm more worried about a praying, as you would say, between two of these boats at speed, and that's for me a much bigger worry. Let me move."
Someone gets this wrong, this is going to be horrible to watch. And we to tell you what, they'll be on the front page of the Times in London if that happens. But it's quite it's become a niche sport, and to get the eyeballs now of the youth of today. We've stuck them on fours. We've stuck, the most incredible photos that we've just seen, from Gilles. Still, does that quite capture attention? I don't know, and I'm not sure about these, these foiling monohulls. I'm really not sure, and I think we'll very quickly get over this and move on to something else.
Okay, let me go on to some more of this article because. There's as many opinions as there are people on here, and the rest of this article, which I cut through it. Christopher Culver, who became New York Yacht Club's Commodore yesterday, said the club, back in the America's Cup for the first time in nearly 20 years, had been asked by a number of parties to use its position as the original holder of the America's Cup to drive the conversation on improving the event. I skipped down to the quote. The stakeholders in general believe the cost of the America's Cup prohibit the future growth of the Cup. We're looking forward to creating an opportunity and a dialogue where we can reduce the cost to increase greater participation, Commodore Culver said. Interestingly, Bernie Wilson reports that the Royal New Zealand Yacht Squadron Commodore Aaron Young was on the NYYC's call, but he didn't respond to requests or comment. Our old friend, longtime friend, Malin Burnham, who's in his 90s, still one of the sharpest, smartest guys in the sport. I editorialize. And America's
That's also
Cup.
True.
you agree with that, right?
Absolutely.
He's an America's Cup Hall of Famer from San Diego who was on the call, said there is an interest in improving the competition. Malin has, of course, put forward various proposals over the years. Burnham, who was involved in DC's winning campaigns 87 and 88 and otherwise, said he believes New York Yacht Club, quote, has to win this thing in order to control it. Hopefully they can negotiate with the Challenger record to give them 2 cycles, to give them time to do a real change. I don't think that's going to happen unless, again, Magnus, you win it in over 2 cycles. Any last comments on that whole initiative?
All I'd say is, look, you had 132 years of the Cup. It's time it came to the Royal Yacht Squadron in the UK. And, with the greatest respect to the New York Yacht Club, and I've been there, and I've been to the summer house as well. It's a fabulous place, and there's some lovely people there. But look, your time's up. It's time for the Royal Yacht Squadron to have it.
With all due respect, I think that the Cup, after seeing those World Series regattas we had in the lead up to 2007 that were in Italy, and having spent a lot of time in Italy and flown through airports with Italians and with Paul Caird, who is Gardini's helm, I think the Cup in Italy would be fabulous, absolutely spectacular.
It would never happen, it'll be being late in the afternoon. It just wouldn't happen,
Everybody will have a good time.
Everybody would have a good time. The pasta would be good. Anyway, that was that article we were reading. It was Bernie Wilson's report today. It's all over the world on the AP Sports Wire. Bernie Wilson, of course, from San Diego, been covering the Cup forever. Just to wrap up the Cup, and then we're going to get to the Vendée Globe. I hope, Magnus, you can stay with us, right?
Yeah, I can stay.
Okay. It's 22:31 over there. This is the format for next Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Thursday, the 17th in New Zealand. It's Wednesday night here. Julia, are we going to do a watch party? A lot of people are asking us. I can't co-stream it. I don't want to have a copyright strike, but we could run the on one screen. We could all be watching the live stream or however you're watching it, or in our case NBC if we buy the package, or watch it through a VPN. And then we could have all of you sitting around on your other devices watching us, talking with each other, and we could have our FOSI in a community.
Yeah, I think we ought to try it.
And maybe we should try that. Magnus, what are you going to be doing during that'll be 3 a.m. for you, something like that?
It's going to be fascinating. I mean, I've already highlighted Friday the 18th. I think it's going to be full on. That's when we're going to know what the state of play with Team Ineos is. They're up against the Kiwis, and 2 races that day. I mean, God, that's going to be absolutely fascinating. That's going to be the one. But there's also the other race. We'll know a lot more when they go up against Patriot and they go up against Luna Rossa. We'll start to see the pecking order of the challengers. And but Friday the 18th, God, it's a week away, and the boat's in the shed, and it's not coming out until Monday.
Is that right? Is that what you're hearing?
Yeah. It's in the shed. It's not. It won't be racing. They've said that the team has confirmed that it won't be racing or sailing this weekend. It's coming out on Monday.
We see Gladwell is on. Richard's weighed in. He says, and of course Richard, who has been following the Cup forever and is the leading yachting journalist, I think that's fair to say, in New Zealand, and Richard is saying the first 2 days of practice racing, quote unquote practice racing, was in hindsight a complete joke, not even worth discussing. Yesterday, we saw ETNZ sailing at race pace for the first time, a truly impressive performance from a boat that has been sailing for just 3 weeks and a crew that was sailing for the 3rd successive day in fresh winds. Today is declaration day for the configuration for the AC, because they have to do that 5 days in advance. We know that under the sailing instructions. Today is declaration day. The challengers were most likely preparing for that. They have all been putting in the time on the water, and it's hard to believe that they all suffered exactly. I think Richard's agreeing with us on that front. And they have all been putting in the time on the water, and it's hard to believe they've been suffered breakdowns after just 2 days of half-assed practice racing. Arsed, as you all in the Commonwealth would say. The racing yesterday was pulled forward to 1100 and finished around 1300 and had 5 or 6 starts and 2 full races, all deadly serious, and ETNZ starting with a second or 2 to spare. Well,
yeah, I mean, I think Richard. I mean, I love what Richard writes. He's pretty much spot on. Most of the time, and he reports accurately and he reports well. And no doubt he was on the water watching the racing. And everybody can smell this at the moment, and people who have been around this game for a long time can smell it, and they can, and they know that Team New Zealand is a very, very rapid boat, and the others aren't at the races at the moment.
Well, we shall know in 5 days' time, because here is the schedule. We've been running it. There's round robin racing, a double round robin, each of the teams racing the other three twice on the 17th, 18th, and 19th, starting at 1500, 3 p.m. local. The Cup racing will be at 1600, 4 p.m. local when it gets around to that, starting an hour earlier. And then the top four teams advance into, well, all four teams advance into the semis, first against fourth, second against third, coming out of the rounds robin in terms of points. And maybe if you get some points taken off because the jury gives you a penalty or something. But first against fourth, second against third, the winners of those two semifinals, and it's a one-race knockout on the 20th. They advance. They go forward to the finals. The losers go down to that consolation bracket there at the bottom to determine third and fourth place. I think it's a good, tidy format. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, Tom, who do you think is going to win?
I won't bet against ETNZ, and I don't think they'll play any mind games and sandbag to the extent of letting some other team. But there's one other thing we haven't talked about, and there's no doubt the teams will get better, including ETNZ. As you said, they've probably got another arrow or two in their quivers they haven't pulled out yet. But as in Formula One, and as we saw in 03, as we've seen even to a degree here in San Francisco 2013, people do make mistakes. They do make strategic mistakes. Grant Dalton, I think, made a couple of, your PIP keeps, we got a resolution issue there, but it keeps, you're trying to get big. You're trying to horn in on our show.
No, he's just.
It's fine. I think that what we'll see, however, is there will be some breakage. And to finish first you have to finish. So there could be breakdowns. There could be mental breakdowns. You could have a quick boat and a slow skipper. Who knows? What do you think?
I think we'll see changes. I think we'll see teams changing. That they will be changing their boats. They'll be modifying their boats. The development cycles will continue. I think personnel will change. Will we see people within teams exiting? That happens in every single Cup cycle. Strap yourself in. This is going to be a good ride. And the early signs at the moment of Team New Zealand are streets ahead. But a really decent Challenger series, a really decent Christmas series, and the boats get faster and faster. And I'm particularly interested in the pre-starts. They will develop fast in the pre-start. But I don't know. I struggle to see past Team New Zealand for this one.
Yeah, I'm with you, but we shall soon see, because in 5 days' time, and again, the racing is Thursday the 17th, New Zealand time, the 18th, 19th, and 20th. That means they will be airing here in the States the day before, on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, because, of course, they're across the date line down there ahead of us. The ACWS Auckland, America's Cup World Series Auckland, and the Christmas Cup coming to a television screen one way or another near you, whether you want to pay for it or not. Here in the States on the NBC Gold platform. What is it, Julia? $175?
Right.
To get the digital platform. And, and that's not just these races.
It's everything.
That's everything, right? Through the end of the Cup. And, of course, Challenger Selection Series then for the Prada Cup takes place in January, late January and February. And then the winners of the Challenger Selection Series Prada Cup will advance to the America's Cup match against the Kiwis. They don't have to race off for the right to defend, as that's the America's Cup format. And that starts Saturday, March 6th, first to win 5 races. Right?
Tom,
five.
So $10 bet on the 17th, the first race, Patriot against Team Ineos.
I think Patriot will win.
$10.
Yeah, I'll bet you $10. I'm not much of a gambling person, except if people send us money and become more people become patrons, we get a few more bucks in here. I could afford to gamble with you, Julia.
Yes.
Do you want to join that bet?
Yeah.
He's taking pay the.
I'm doing $10 here.
He's taking the Brits. He's taking the Brits over New York. Ben over Terry.
Yes.
And Dean. I'll take that bet for sure. And a lot of people.
Chaos is going to come out, and it's going to be they're going to be smoking. And I think they're going to be smarting from the comments and the commentary, and may well be inspired by me, whatever. They're going to be. They know they're on the back foot, and I think that first race, I think there could be quite a few frustrations coming out, and a few told you so's Wheatley, and I really hope that's the case. I really, really hope I'm wrong.
Well, likewise, so do I. And as Mark Reed has said, and others, look at what Otusa, Oracle Team USA, did here at being down 8-1 and coming back to win 9-8. They figured Ben, basically, it was Ben and others, but Ben went aboard and helped them figure out how to get the boat foiling upwind. And then after that, it was race over. So let's move on. I got one more video to play here. And this is the New York Yacht Club video saying we're about to race. They issued this a day or two ago. I think it's a beautiful video. All the teams are doing great stuff, great videography, great films. Let's have a look at this. Yeah, 0+5. It starts in 5 days' time. The teams are locking down their configuration under the rules, and that is our AC30, our extensive AC36 Cupdate for today. Thank you very much to Magnus Wheatley, who is going to stay with us, I think, for the Vendee Globe segment, right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, if you're just joining us, and there are well over 100 people viewing live, which is fantastic. Thanks for finding us back here on Facebook. If you're just joining us, Magnus is live via Skype from London, where he lives. Kensington, right?
Yeah, Kensington.
Fancy suburb, fancy part of London. And
perfect for the banker, right?
Yeah, a banker should live in Kensington or Knightsbridge or Mayfair or something. Magnus, of course, a celebrated journalist. Some people are mad as hell at him because he's taken his home team to task of late, his Ineos Team UK, but I don't think there's some people who are fanboys who are disagreeing with you, and some others that are keen observers. A lot of people are also agreeing with you, and I'm hearing similar kinds of things, Magnus, as well. So let's move on now to, for our Friday the 11th show, number 357.
Yes.
We're going to be to 400 before you know it. Here's the situation in the Vendée Globe. As you all know, it's the round the world alone race. I didn't even bother with that graphic. Starts in France, goes around from west to east. And the headlines today, day 33, that with no working computers, Fabrice Amadeo has abandoned, has been forced to abandon. Dahlin's margin is halved. He's down to only, I think last I looked, 94, 95, 96 mile lead. And some of the fleet now are getting into the Southern Ocean, some of the tail enders, that today on day 33 of the Vendée Globe. I'm going to read this, and then we'll talk about what your opinions are. Magnus, leader Charlie Dahlin has seen his margin more than halved in the last 36 hours as he negotiates a high-pressure zone of lighter air some 630 nautical miles west of the longitude of Australia's Cape Leeuwin. I love Cape Leeuwin. The perils of being first to break into the gentler winds are obvious as he does. It's the race accordions, as you all know. The leader gets into light air, and the people behind catch up, and then the leader gets into some heavy air, and heavier air and stretches out. So that's what's happening here. But he's got a pretty good lead. And the perils of being first to break into gentler winds are obvious as he sees the chasing duo have closed to within 100. Well, it's actually under 100 nautical miles last I checked, albeit partly as he repositioned himself further to the south. But while some have been questioning if Dunn is hiding damage, which might account for his slower speeds, the 35-year-old who originates from Le Havre has been sailing into the lightest wind of any of the top 15 boats. So I don't think he's damaged, at least doesn't sound to me like he is. Charlie, quote, Charlie is facing an area of lighter winds for a few hours. Those chasing after him are sailing in 15 to 25 knots, yada, yada, yada. And that is that's the latest, or as I said, 3 hours ago now, as I put that together. Let me play this English update from our FOSI, who's still covering the desk, Ryan Braymeyer. Have a look at this.
Good evening and welcome to the Vendée Flash, 11th of December, the 33rd day of the race. Bad news of the evening, Fabrice Amadeo has not managed to resolve his computer issues and is headed toward Cape Town, where he's going to be forced to join Sam Davies, Sebastian Simon, and Alex Thompson in abandoning the Vendée Globe. On the brighter side of things, Armel Trupon finally has conditions to let Occitane-en-Provence off the leash, as we can see here in this video.
Bonjour à tous, bienvenue à bord du train express L'Occitane. Parti en chasse dans l'Indien, en mode Sioux, avec deux bateaux en ligne de mire. Voilà, on ne s'arrête jamais. On a changé de décor, aujourd'hui c'est tout gris. C'est tout gris, c'est au portant, ça surfe, il y a des belles vagues. Voilà, je vous laisse apprécier le décor. Allez, bonne journée à tous, à bientôt.
Tonight's ranking sees the front of the fleet much closer together and with visibly better conditions for fast sailing. Leader Charlie Dallin is at 23 knots on the last ranking. Perhaps he's fixed whatever was keeping him slow over the course of the day, but has lost quite a bit of his lead over the course of the last 36 hours, with less than 100 miles between him and second place Thomas Rayon. Chasing pack are all registering speeds in the high teens, with Maitre Coq again on top, 25 miles out of second place at 21.7 knots. The lead pack have all done more than 400 miles today. In the second third of the rankings,
okay, I think I'll let it go there. And I just love these guys and all of them and the gals. 33 entries, 6 of whom are women. And they are great ambassadors, it seems to me. Tell me if I'm wrong. Great ambassadors for the sport. And I'll turn down Ryan Braymeyer. And Julia loves these guys. They're so enthusiastic. They're so optimistic. And even Alex Thompson, your British colleague, even in the huge disappointment of him having to drop out, just, okay, he was tearful and understandably, but what a great ambassador for the sport, as is Boris Herman, as is Samantha Davies, as are all these guys and gals, in my not so humble opinion.
Yeah, I mean they're all bonkers. I mean what they do. I mean you see those onboard footage,
Yes.
Coming off.
Absolutely.
I mean
Exactly.
after when we had PRB literally folding in half at 23 knots or something, and then they get into a life raft. I mean, I went to bed. When was that? Was that Saturday, Sunday, Monday, whenever it was? And I said to my son, I said, just think right now there's a guy sitting in the Southern Ocean in a life raft. I mean, that must be terrifying. Then you've got John LeCam picking you up, and the guy is, just utterly unbelievable. Was told to hold steady for the night, but he went, no, I'm going to go and find him.
Then he finds him and I'm going to pluck you off the life raft now, not wait till the light of day.
Yeah. Will you be back? No, we're doing it now. I mean, these guys are different breed, and it's no secret because they all congregate around Sable d'Olonne, and I've called it the University of Vendée Dreams. They all go and live in little containers, and they all know each other. They drink together, they train together, they do things together. You know, and they're all great friends, and you know, they're all trying to achieve this impossible dream of sailing around the world single-handed. And you know, we see the shots in the daytime. Remember, that's relentless, 24 hours a day. I mean, they are utterly bonkers, but amazing. I mean, absolutely amazing.
Vive la com.
Vive la com.
Vive la com.
I mean, he was, you know, when he was saved by PRB back in the day when he had his issues, saved off Cape Horn, I think it was, and you know, they are mad. But even madder are the multi-hull guys. And I don't know if you've been following that, Tom. There's a couple of them down there. I mean, the speeds those guys are going is something else again. And they're fully crewed and, you know, going for the record. And, you know, it's the Southern Ocean season at the moment. I think it has actually been quite mild down there this time. There's been a couple of nights when it's been 40, 50, 60 knots. But I had a friend who went across, and I said, what was the top wind speed you saw? And he went 95 knots.
Yeah, it's apparently the summer winds down there. We're going to see a report in a sec from Tip and Shaft that maybe the whole normal weather patterns are 3 weeks behind. And let's just wrap that up. You saw from Ryan Braymeyer, but Apivia is still leading, and Thomas Rion in Linked Out is in second, and on down the list. And it looks like it's going to be a good race, and we'll follow the race. We'll follow each at the start, unless all of you say otherwise. I mean, you can go on and check it yourself on Vendée Globe, on the excellent Vendée Globe website, and we hope you will keep following that as well. Food for thought. Steve Atkins is saying Ryan B is a USA boat in the next Vendée. We hope that's the case. We've also got a lot of new people still coming on, joining us. Thank you for that. Well said, Magnus, about Lacombe. That was freaking heroic. Think about how tough that was. Exactly. The ultimate Bravo Zulu to Jean Lacombe, Clark Chapin is saying. Okay, I'll move on here to Tip and Shaft, which is, we keep commending it to you. It's the free newsletter coming out of France. They have an English and a French, maybe other languages, and it comes out every Friday by email. And the name notwithstanding, Magnus, Julia always shakes her finger at me and she says, don't make fun of the name Tip and Shaft. And of course, we're talking about foils, not
yes, dear,
not other things. But good interview with Vendée today, and I've just taken an excerpt from it. Thomas Rion was asked, broke his port foil, and Vendée, of course, has designed the top two boats and a number of others. Thomas Rion broke his portfolio. Can you tell us how you spoke to him and his team to develop the best solution? These exchanges are very factual, not emotional. We ask them what is damaged, and then they send us pictures to determine, based on what's on board, what is fixable. Then it was found that the fibers were not broken and that the foil surface was damaged, so we have to make some calculation to determine the strength of the two half thicknesses. That's why we asked him, words not there, to cut his foil. Then the aim was to reduce the force to prevent the foil from breaking between the foil bearings, which could lead to water leaks. Sam Davies' damage was different, with cracked bulkheads on the keel well. In this case, we try to develop a vision of the structural integrity of the whole boat and the level of risk in relation to its condition. We quickly saw that it was too dangerous to continue. And you're shaking your head and saying, man, oh man. I mean, you just look, that picture of the bow of PRB, 90 degrees up. I mean, the boat, just as you said in the tech check, it just folded up like a bloody banana. Can you imagine being on the boat and see that happen?
But I mean, I think what's even more, what really gets my interest is that there's, it's a bit like one of the Apollo mission that got stuck up there, and they had to, literally look at every single piece on the module to try and work out a way to get the thrusters working. I mean, they've got so much kit on board, and you look at when Alex had his issues, he said, "Oh, don't worry, I'm going to repair the bulkhead at the front." I mean, like, blimey, I mean, there are hairy boat builders who would be going, cool, that's going to be a 3-week job, mate. You know, and he's banging away with the guy that cut his foil off. He actually got an electric saw and cut it off. You could see him standing on the edge of his, edge of his foil, edge of his tip,
No.
Yeah, he had to climb out on the foil, right? With some,
he's got like a chainsaw cutting it off. I mean, it's incredible what these guys do, and the stuff they've got on board, and the speeds they're going, the bravery of them. I mean, could I do that? No. And this is the thing, you look at these all the sports we've looked at, they're vastly different from what we sail week in, week out. And you look at them and go, could I do it? No, I couldn't. And
do you aspire to do it? Because part of what is cool about F1 is that we're all car driver. Most of us drive cars, and we can aspire to sit on the grid and try to get the car off the grid without stalling it, and then get around the first corner without killing ourselves or somebody else. Do you aspire to do the Vendée, or to be the driver of one of these AC75s?
I'd love to have a go on an AC75. Yes, please. But I mean, I've been on an Imoca, and it's another world. The speeds it goes is just incredible, and it's just a very different sailing. It's very physical, very, very, very physical. And even the older generation boats, the people saying, well, I've had to take a sail down, or I've had to furl a sail. The effort that requires is massive. And, they're very, very fit. They're very well trained. And, this is what they do. And I love, I love hanging around with these people and listening to their stories. And, there's everything against them. To get around the world, it's a hell of a thing to do, and to race it as well. Incredible.
Well, Apivia is still leading, although the lead has been slimmed down to under 100 nautical miles, 90 some. I think it's 97 now, not 94. But I don't know. I haven't looked online. But I commend to you once again the Vendée Globe TV channel on YouTube, and it is updated during the day, their day and our morning. It is updated minute to minute. I mean, there's just I keep saying this, a fire hose of videos coming off. The red ones are the updates, the so-called flashes, both in French and in English, and then the blue ones are coming off the yachts, and they're doing a terrific job on the Vendée Globe TV channel on YouTube. Anything in summary to all that, Magnus?
It's fascinating to watch it, and I will be following that race. The way that the Vendée organization is running this media and bringing it to life is second to none. And have you seen some of the drone footage that's coming off them? What it feels to me is that the sailors have finally got it, that they are going to be responsible for taking videos. And remember, there are school children in France who are tuned into this and are following it in lessons. And, people are talking about it in France. And the Vendée organization, I think, is, if we're talking about, America's Cup and New York Yacht Club hosting Zoom meetings, get these guys involved, get them talking, because they certainly know about engagement. And engagement is what the Olympics, struggles with. It's what the America's Cup struggles with. It's why bloggers like me get airtime, because we say something controversial and it brings things to life. What the Vendée needs no controversy, no controversy whatsoever. It sells itself. But all of those skippers are responsible for for videoing, talking, bringing that race to life, and they've taken that responsibility really seriously.
Well, we won't get into the whole business of the Imoca 60s and the ocean race. Let's save that for another time. But there are a lot of folks on here, Julia, who keep signing on. We're still up at around 100. Warren Schosser signed in from Sydney. John Howard, there's not a new name, but welcome back. And on and on and on. Thank you. I guess you all are happy that we're back on Facebook. Is there anybody saying, shame on you, you ought to go back to YouTube?
Not yet. And they're well over 250 comments.
Yeah, well, we get a lot of comments when we've been on Facebook. The Ormas, you want to talk briefly about the Ormas? Are they going to make Are they going to set the record? They're a little bit behind. They were behind the pace, then they were ahead of it. Now they're back behind the pace from memory.
Depends how far south they dare to go. But I don't know. I mean, I look at those boats. I mean, they are flying, absolutely flying. I looked at the weather systems that they were running into, and I think they're going to slow down a little bit in the next couple of days. They go through one big depression, and then they're through. And yeah, I mean, I look at them and think, how the hell do those things get around the world? And I doff my hat. Those sailors are mad.
Trophy Jules Verne, and we followed a little bit, Will, as they get closing in, and we'll see how they're doing, and because it's not, strictly speaking, it's not yacht racing, but we will cover that in due course. Let's get on to the Olympics, Magnus, because you also wrote a piece quite positive about world sailing. And actually a little critical of the IOC. And I'll just reprise what we said on Tuesday, because we ran Mikkel Thomason's article from sailmagazinet.no about the uncertainty. That was his headline, Uncertainty about Double-Handed Mixed Offshore. The IOC is not convinced that the safety requirements can be met. In other words, the IOC, in reviewing the program put forward by each of the international federations, including World Sailing, said that mixed double-handed offshore was adopted by World Sailing with a very thin majority. This is Mikkel writing. In 2018, at the expense of the Finn class, the IOC cannot, given the conditions presented by World Sailing to date, accept this discipline on the Paris 2024 program, and has given World Sailing until May 2021 to convince the IOC that safety and costs for this discipline, that is the mixed-gender dual sailor offshore event up and down the coast, either side of Marseille in France, 2024, will be taken care of. World Sailing said in a statement after the press conference that they will work to give the IOC satisfactory answers, yada, yada. The Finn class is standing by and hoping that doesn't happen, Magnus, as you are shaking your head. Yes, you wrote quite a strong piece about this. Yeah, and our friend Andrew McIrvin has also weighed in on Facebook, quite supportive of what you were saying. In fact, he said it before you did.
I mean, World Sailing doesn't like keel boats. I mean, that's documented. So the IOC is presenting, that statement is a presentation back. They're being nobbled by World Sailing, and World Sailing are saying this event isn't going to happen. I think it's a huge shame, but sailing is moving in the right direction. I think if they take the fin back, I think that's a step backwards. But I was looking at it. I think sailing as an Olympic sport is going to get slimmed down again. And I think the laser, has it had its day? Has the 470 had its day? I think the drive for inclusion is fantastic, and the 470 would not be an Olympic class if it wasn't mixed now. The 49er ERFX, whatever it's called, that's great, but I urge World Sailing to try and get together and actually look at what the output will be. I've done the Olympic Games as a journalist, and I went around so many different events. And what really struck me was how visual everything has to be. It is a completely made for television event. It's made for social media. It's made for an output, a television digital output. Does the 470 capture that? No, it doesn't. It simply doesn't. Does the NACRA 17 cover it? No, I don't think it does. So whilst I think the World Sailing and IOC has really gone down on the inclusion line, which is fantastic, and I'd love them to do the offshore racing. If offshore racing isn't in it, that's it. Offshore racing will, under people like Andrew McIrvin and other people, they will divorce from World Sailing. There's absolutely no reason for them to be signed up to World Sailing. World Sailing has, I think, they've got too many committees. They've got too many people who I don't think are, I even suggested you, Tom, for being head of World Sailing. I don't think it's got the right people there, and I think they've really got to look at the output, and they've got to look at what is going to capture attention. I mean, they've just included breakdancing. I mean, breakdancing, really? but that's to capture a younger audience. What discipline could we put forward that's going to be visual, that's going to work on social media, and is going to be, highly entertaining? Well, you're probably looking at foiling moths. You're probably looking at, boats that we don't really see very often, out on our race courses.
Well, that's why, that's why we're doing kites. That's why we're doing foiling windsurfers. I think that the IOC wants the games to be younger and urban. But then a federation comes along and puts in an offshore event, which, Kenny Reed at age 60 is saying, well, maybe I'll sail in this and maybe I'll team up with, so I think the problem is not the offshore. I think the problem is the loss of the fin, which is the only big physical tough boat that has the decades of history from Elfstrom to Coots to Bertrand to tell me who, to say nothing of Ainsley. And I also... I don't care about the boats. I don't care about the vehicles, frankly. I care about the personalities. I care about the people. And when you said the moth, that's music to my proverbial ears, or proverbial music to my ears, because I think that is what really makes the Olympics, are the personalities of the people. And you go follow the great sailors. Where are they? Follow them into the classes where they're sailing. And they're in the fin class, and they're in the star class. And if offshore attracts great sailors, if that gets Shirley Robertson, for example, as a name back into the sport, even though she's a bit older now than when she won her medals, I'm all for it. I want, and the moth especially. I mean, you go see what goes on at the Moth Worlds, and who's there? Everybody's there. Right?
Yeah, it's an incredible spectacle. I mean, I can remember back in about 2002, 2003, I was down in Australia at the Geelong Regatta, and I was out on Grant Warrington's Wild Thing, and there's loads of grizzled, professionals on board, and he said, oh, you're going to see something today that's going to change sailing. And Rowan Veal came along with his international moth, and he said, hi, guys, sheeted on and flew out of the water. And we all went, what? Yep. People who've seen everything. It's the moth still has that, but is it one design enough? It is an open class. I'm not sure. You'd have to try and one design it some way. I'm quite fascinated by the drive for inclusion. Which sports today have women and men competing on exactly the same level? And you can only really come into kind of equestrian. Ice, some figure skating, I think, maybe angling, dart. Sailing could actually lead the way here. And if you brought in a moth and had it as an open class, and it's men against, men and women competing together, wow, that would be something.
Well, there's the cost issue, and John Sangmeister's raised it, and John Emmett's raised it, and others, because the smaller, poor MNAs, and that's where the IOC is getting a lot of objection to this offshore thing. They're saying, well, we'll never be able to afford to have a boat and to train in a boat. The island nations.
$15 million for insurance.
And insurance, and exactly, Julia, and the island nations saying, how do we get a boat to get competitive in Oceania to compete against Australia and New Zealand and so on. Well, let's leave that for another day, sir, if that's okay. But interesting, we got everybody. Fritz Mueller's pushing the Fireball class, which I used to sail before the 470 got chosen. It's food for thought. I'm just a big believer in following in the marketplace and follow the sailors and where the sailors are. Just a quick thing. What do you think of the SSL? Speaking of following the sailors,
the SSL,
Star Sailors League.
Oh man, okay. Now you're talking. Well, I've always said that the Star is the one boat that I really, really want to sail. I've never had the opportunity to sail one, and I put that on my blog. And I got contacted by the German Star Association, who said, "Please come to the World Championships. We'll give you a boat." It's fantastic. Yeah, I mean the Star Sailors League. That's it's a sideshow. It's great. You go down it, and it's a who's who of yachting. Fantastic. I mean. But is it relevant? Is it modern? Is it the future? I'm sad to say it's not, and I'm a big Star.
Well, I'm not talking about the thing that goes on in Nassau normally this time of year. I'm talking about when they get into the Russells, the RC-44s, and have their big league event with 40 some odd countries. Not this coming summer, the summer after. I think it's going to be massive. I think it's going to be a great, big, cool event, country versus country offshore teams in these revised RC44s.
Well, the RC44, that's an awesome boat. So yeah, I mean, bring it on.
Okay. There's so many other comments. Isn't the Wasp a one design moth? We can talk about one design. That's a whole nother issue. And whether you ought to be able to build these boats is another issue, and build them in your own garage,
Right,
so that they are more affordable. But let's carry on here and wrap this turkey up. We're 2 hours and 10 minutes in.
Oops, went fast.
It did go fast because such an interesting guest. I really appreciate Magnus
Yes.
coming on. Magnus, we try to wrap the show up with a whiskey. Well, we don't. We do wrap it up with a whiskey Tango Foxtrot because of 2020 and all that. And there wasn't much. There wasn't anything. We usually do a This Day in History segment, Julia. And frankly, Hamish Ross wrote to me and said nothing happened of note either on the 11th or the 12th. And, there's obviously some things of note, but nothing relevant really to the sport. The America's Cup, which we do a lot of stuff in August, September, October, obviously. There's not much of that. But we do have this. Somebody sent this to me and said, how would you like to wake up to this? Now, I don't know. What do you call this silver thing that showed up in South Dakota or North Dakota or something?
Yeah.
What was that thing? You had one show up on the Isle of Wight, didn't you?
Yeah, it's a plinth. It showed up on Compton Beach in the Isle of Wight.
And they're showing, I'm sure a lot of them are copycats now, but they're starting to show up all over. And just God forbid if one shows up in your toilet in the morning, only in 2020, right? Right?
Virtually.
Well, virtually. After that spicy chicken you served us last night, Julia.
Yes.
That was another issue. Okay. And then there's this. And this is not Prada, but this is the fashion. I could not. This is serious stuff. People putting this forward in the fashion shows in Paris.
I can see you in that, Tom.
You can?
Yeah, definitely. I think you got to get on it. Come on, you got to get young and with the kids.
Yeah, well, it's an interesting kit, as you would say. Not my style. Not my style, Magnus. Look at that craziness. What the hell is that? What is wrong with 2020?
Come on, Tom. There's a lot of rumors about you in 2003.
Well, a lot of it's true, but this is nutty. My God. Okay, that's it for 2020, Magnus. That's for our little segment. Nothing too earth-shaking there. Anything else, sir, that you want to comment on?
I think the thing to say is a big thank you to you and Julia for having me. I mean, it's quite a ballsy call having a blogger on here. You probably have world-renowned sailors. I'm a weekend warrior. I write what I see, and I'm extremely grateful for the opportunity to talk to you.
Well, Magnus Blake Middleton is saying, who's one of our regulars. He's been on the show a couple times. He's up in Minnesota, a terrific race officer, terrific sailor. Used to work for us at U.S. Sailing when I way back when ran it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Magnus. Very refreshing input on multiple fronts, and thanks for going back to Facebook, Julia and Tom. Okay. Doesn't even have matching socks. That croutonics, that was... I don't think the shoes are matching. Knobby knees, Europe dinghy, originally a moth. The triple IPA fits content perfectly. This day in history. Now, Stingray, we're not going to do a This Day in History because, frankly, there wasn't too much interesting. I do think your king, who married the American socialite, I think he actually finally, he said
Edward.
King Edward VIII, was it?
Yeah.
Was it Edward VIII? I think he actually abdicated on the 11th, on Friday the 11th. He announced it 2 or 3 days before, but it became official on Friday. But we ran that on the Tuesday show. So. Okay, Magnus, thank you very much indeed.
Yes, thank you.
Magnus Wheatley joining us live via Skype from London. Been great to have you on the show. We'll do it again, I hope, sooner than later.
Thank you very much, guys.
Okay,
Yes.
Thank you. Ciao.
Bye.
See you. Talk soon. Okay, Julia, that was a lot of fun and very, as I think Blake Middleton and others said, very illuminating.
Yes, absolutely.
Magnus on. And I got some hate mail. Why are you having that guy on? You called, you said that he was He was rarely in error, but never in doubt. He's often in error. But you know, I really like him because he says what he means. He means what he says. And we need that. I think it's refreshing to have. I mean, every other sport.
It is.
Think about it. Every other sport, whether it's the U of M football or Stanford football or any of the other professional sports, has journalists who are calling balls and strikes and saying what they think. And people read it. They get up in the morning to see what's, what people are saying about the sport. So these croutons that are not happy about, having Magnus or us or somebody else saying something, they want the money, they want the attention, but, with that comes a little bit of sometimes.
Yes. Okay. And with any luck, it's two-way communication and everybody learns a little bit something.
Well, that's true too, especially with Magnus. Two-way communication. He's still there. He's smiling. Big smile. Thank you, Magnus. Okay, guys and gals, Julia?
Yes, this is a good day to like, follow, and share, and follow and share, and so you get involved with the next announcement.
Like, follow, and share, and comments they're open now. They remain open, and one of the nice things about Facebook is that this video turns right around. It becomes available. The YouTube video takes a couple, 3 hours to turn around because I guess they're checking all the. I don't know what they're checking. Tell us in the comments below if you're happy that we're back on. Tom, I had over 20 watching your show that I started. Oh, okay, great. So it looks like Pedro Filing Sailor did a watch party. Thanks, Peter Stevenson. Tell us if you're happy that we're back on Facebook or if you think we should go back to YouTube. We'll try to co-stream it eventually, but that takes money and takes some technical issues that we have to solve. And if you're so inclined with the money, you could help us by becoming a patron via Patreon, patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated. We would be entirely grateful. Julia, anything else?
No, not today.
Okay, well, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Thank you very much for watching. Hope to see you on Tuesday, same time, same channel. We will, we'll do it again next Tuesday on Facebook, and hope that you can join us then. In the meantime, stay safe, all of you, please, and go sailing. Ciao.